Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf. As I said in one of my first videos of this year, I really have to catch up on the tags. So today I'm gonna do another one, and that's the reading habits tag. I was tagged by Steve over at Steve Donahue, and the original tag was created a long time ago in 2012 by Jasmin from the Book Jazz, who unfortunately hasn't posted any videos in quite some time, but announced on Twitter a couple of days ago that she will post again. So Jasmin, we are all waiting for you. But without further ado, on to the questions. Number one, do you have a special place at home for reading? A certain place at home for reading? I have a couple, and they all involve lying down because I can't read sitting up, or at least I don't enjoy it. So it's either in the living room on the couch lying down, or in bed lying down, or in my reading room where most of my books are, where I have a day bed, which fancily you can call a chaise longue. So you can lie down there as well. So I'm always in one of those places lying down. Question number two, do you use bookmarks or a random piece of paper? I use actually neither. I always use bookish postcards. I have a whole collection of them. Let's see, like this, and this is my favorite. This one with the little Goethe. So I use those, except for books that I buddy read. Then I always use one of those. Yeah, I know. Don't ask. I'm just weird. Anyway, question number three. Can you stop reading at any time, or do we have to stop at a certain, end of chapter or certain amounts of words? I like it when I stop when there is a break in the story. It doesn't necessarily have to be end of a chapter, but if it's the end of a paragraph, or that the point of view changes, because for me it's then easier to pick the book up again later. But if that's not possible, if I'm just tired, or if I read on the train and I have to get out, then I can stop anywhere, but preferably when there is some break in the story. Question four, do you eat or drink while reading? Yeah, I drink water or coffee or tea or something sometimes, but I don't eat other than, a piece of chocolate or something when I feel snackish like that while I'm reading. But otherwise, I don't eat while reading. Question five, multitasking, music or TV while reading. Normally, no. I like it when it's quiet when I read, but it depends also a little bit on what I'm reading. If I'm reading for work, non-fiction, law-related work, then often I have the radio on, because it helps me concentrate somehow. But if I read novels, especially, I'd rather have it quiet. Question six. One book at a time or several books at once? Well, I'm not a bookish monogamist, so I read several books at once. Obviously not simultaneously, but I read a little bit in one book and then continue in another book. And most of the time it's one novel and one or two books of nonfiction, especially if the nonfiction book is something, long and heavy content-wise, not book-carrying-wise. If it's a philosophy book or something which I read slowly, then I read one or two of those nonfiction books at the same time, and a novel. And normally I only read one novel, with one exception. If I read a novel for a book club on Goodreads or a real life book club and I don't really enjoy it, so it's a bit of a struggle for me to get to the end, but I want to finish it in order to be able to participate in the discussion later, then I might put that book down for a little bit, for a day or two or three, and read another novel in between. But I always have several books, one novel and one or two nonfiction books going at the same time. Question 7. Reading at home or reading everywhere? I do most of my reading at home. I'm at home. I work at home, so I'm home a lot anyway. So I do most of the reading at home. But I also read when I travel with public transport by train or something. Then I read on the train. I don't read while standing in line somewhere. I can't read standing up, and not at all while I'm walking. I always admire people who can walk and read at the same time. So I can't do it. I will probably just fall over my own feet and hurt myself. So most of the reading is done at home. Question 8. Reading out loud or silently in your head? I read poems out loud. And come to think of answer to my last question, that those are the only reading material that I actually read walking, but only at home, where, because I know where stuff is, where the furniture stands. So I walk up and down and read poems out loud a lot of the times, because when I hear a poem, I can relate to it better. But for the rest, novels, nonfiction, I read silent, so I don't speak the words out loud, and I don't speak the words silently in my head. There's a whole discussion about that if you vocalize the words, then you read slower, because it takes more time to actually speak the words, even if it's only silently in your head, then just read them and understand them. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know. So I don't vocalize except when I'm tired. I realize that then I start to read more slowly, and then I also start to vocalize. And it took me quite some time not to do it when reading in a foreign language, so not in my mother tongue, which is German. But now I read so much English or Dutch books that I'm used to reading that foreign language. But English and Dutch are the two languages that when I'm a little bit tired, they tend to start vocalizing in my head. Number 9. Do you read ahead or even skip pages? Oh dear. Oh dear. Yes, I do. I'm such a child. When I was younger, when I was little or beginning teenager, I always read the ending of a novel first, because I wanted to know whether it had a happy ending. You know, teenagers. But even now, if I'm starting a novel and I'm 20, 30, 50 pages in, a lot of the times I read the end and then read the rest of the novel. Don't throw things at me. I'm just a childish reader. Nonfiction, I do that too. I sometimes skip chapters which I think are not interesting, or I read, how do you say that, diagonal, so that I just skim the page from top to bottom, see whether there's anything interesting. I don't do that with novels, only nonfiction. But reading the end, yeah, I tend to do that. Number 10, breaking the spine or keeping it like new. I absolutely hate breaking the spine. That's why I love those floppy paperbacks where you can actually open the book properly without breaking the spine. I'd like to keep the book, not breaking it or tearing out pages, and I don't like breaking the spine. 11. Do you write in your books? Yes. I make notes, or when it's nonfiction, I underline. If I read them on my Kindle, that's very easy, and you can also write notes and mail them to yourself, which is very handy if you read nonfiction. It's actually how I started reading ebooks for work and for nonfiction, because it's so much easier if you have to write an essay or something, or a summary, to make notes and then mail them to yourself, keep them all together. But also in physical books, in novels, not all the time, but I always have a pencil ready, and then I underline things, or a question mark, or you find books where on the side there's notes like, this is bullshit, or this doesn't make sense. So I annotate books, nonfiction especially, but also novels. And the last question only is, who do you tag? Well, this tag has been around for some time, so if you haven't done it, consider yourself tagged. I'd especially like to hear from David over at the Poptimist. It's a fantastic channel, and I would love to hear more about his reading habits. And Luke from Luke Lane Reads as well, and then Jen from Reading with Pugs, and Helene from Helene Jeppesen. Sorry, Helene, I probably completely butchered your last name there. I know Helene did the tag a couple of years ago, but I'd be interested in an update, and that's also for people who did the tag some years ago when it was originally created, 4 years ago or something. Do the tag again, and then do it telling us whether your reading habits changed in the meantime. That would be really fun to hear. So that was it for the reading habits tag, which was a fun tag to do. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.